Ahoy hoy fellow bookworms, my name is Caroline and I like to read books, so let's talk about them. Today's video is going to be the Guilty Reader tag, which was created by Chammy over at Read Like Wildfire, and I'm going to leave all the questions as well as the link to her original video down in the description box. No one actually tagged me to do this, but I've been watching everyone else's videos and I think this is just a really fun tag, so I'm kind of just jumping on the bandwagon anyway. First question is, have you ever regifted a book that you've been given? There's definitely been times where I've lost interest in something that's on my shelf and so I've offered that book to a friend just because I don't really want it anymore. But it's not like I wrap it up in wrapping paper and present it to them as if it's new or give it to them as a gift. I kind of just offer it to them because I don't want it anymore. So no, I've never really regifted anything. Have you ever said you've read a book when you haven't? No, because I would be completely fucking terrified of being caught in a lie like that. Have you ever borrowed a book and not returned it? I have, and even though I've had this book in my possession for like 2 or 3 years now, I still keep it on my bedside table just because I think it's kind of funny. The book that I borrowed and never returned is The Witch's Boy by Michael Gruber, or Grubber, I don't really know how to say his name. Basically, I was at my boyfriend's house one day and I finished the book I was reading and was really in the mood to pick up something else but didn't have anything with me, so he suggested that I read this because it was a book he read when he was a kid and really enjoyed. I started reading it, quite enjoyed it, so I brought it home with me and then just picked something else up off my bookshelf and never continued this, and it just sat on my bedside table for ages, and it's kind of become this ongoing joke with us that whenever I message him and I'm like, hey, just finished a book, what should I read next? He'll be like, can you just finish The Witch's Boy? Or like, why don't you read The Witch's Boy? And it's just this funny thing we do, so I've had this book for like 3 years that I borrowed from him and never returned. Have you ever read a series out of order? I swear there have been so many times that I have almost done this that it's not even funny anymore. This happens to me a lot in bookstores, especially when I'm looking at fantasy books where I'll find something that really intrigues me and I'll read the synopsis and I'll really want to buy it, but just before I do, I'll look it up on Goodreads to see, what some of the reviews say, to see whether it's a complete series and all that sort of stuff. And then I will find out that it's maybe the second or third book in a series and I just didn't know in the bookstore, and that I've spoiled something by reading that synopsis. And it is so frustrating. Have you ever spoiled a book for someone? Unfortunately, my answer for this is yes, and even though I was like 12 when this happened, this is still one of my most shameful stories I have to share. The book that I spoiled for someone is Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix by J.K. Rowling. The shame! When this book came out, I had a friend in school who, like me, was sharing her copy with siblings, and that meant that we were both reading it quite slowly, but every day we would come to school and tell the other person what chapter name we were up to or what page number we were up to or something like that. And one day she came to school and told me she just got up to the chapter called Dumbledore's Army, and I wasn't up to there yet. So to hear that there was a chapter called Dumbledore's Army for me was like a massive spoiler where I was like, what the fuck? Dumbledore has an army? That's like a massive spoiler, and I was so mad. Like, little 12-year-old Caroline was livid. So I went home that night and I read so much, and I pretty much finished the book, or maybe it was over the weekend, I don't really remember, but I passed her and got to the end, and so then I spoiled for her. The next time I saw her, I spoiled the major death in this book, and it wasn't my finest moment, and I'm not particularly proud of it, but I think the lesson is not to spoil anything for me because I'm super petty. The next question is, have you ever doggy-eared a book? And honestly, I probably have at some point in my life as a reader. I just don't have a super specific memory of it that I can draw upon. Have you ever told someone you don't own a book when you do? This question and the next one, which is, have you ever told someone you haven't read a book when you have, are both pretty easy no's for me because I don't get ashamed of books that I have read or books that I own because they've kind of shaped me into the reader that I am today. I think for a lot of people there are books like Twilight or 50 Shades of Grey that you don't want to admit that you read or that you bought or that you enjoyed, but I read Twilight when I was 15 and I fucking loved those books, and I still own them because they kind of shaped who I am as a reader, and I think they were pretty revolutionary for the industry. They got so many people into reading, so I'm not ashamed that I own them, and I would never lie to someone about the fact that I own them or that I read them, so that's my answer. Have you ever skipped a chapter or a section of a book? I don't think I've ever actually skipped anything because I am terrified of missing something important, but there have been times where I've come close, or at least a couple of times where I've been tempted, and one of those was while I was reading the A Song of Ice and Fire series by George R.R. Martin, which Game of Thrones is based on, and Bran's chapters were quite boring at some points in the series. They were just really repetitive and I didn't feel like anything happened. I was just so bored by them compared to what was happening in like Daenerys's chapters or Jon's or anyone else's was so exciting, and Bran's were just boring and I kind of wanted to skip them, but also I knew that I couldn't, so that's probably the closest I've come, but I've never actually skipped anything. Final question time. Have you ever badmouthed a book you actually liked? My answer for this is yes, I badmouth books that I like all the fucking time. I feel like a lot of the time in the book community there's this attitude that if you love a book, you have to love absolutely everything about it. And I just don't really agree with that. I think that if there are things wrong with the book, you should be able to say that there are things wrong with it and you should be able to criticize it. So I talk quite a bit of shit about books that I love or books that I've given 5 stars just because I think nothing is above criticism. That brings us to the end of another video though, guys. I haven't really decided who I'm going to tag, so if you're watching this, just consider yourself tagged. I upload videos Wednesdays, Saturdays, and sometimes Mondays as well, so be sure to like this video and subscribe to my channel, and I will see you in my next video. Toodaloo!